Yeah, so we're gonna talk to John Stewart a little bit later, and he's one of those guys that I think is a little bit of a disruptor in this business. Mike Repole, also disruptor in this business, and we're always open and looking for new ideas on this show to improve the sport and to think outside the box for ways to make it more sustainable for the future. And one of the things that we talk about sometimes is the breeding aspect. Because there's a lot of times where you'll see like the amount of mares that a stallion's been bred to, and you're like, isn't there a better way than having this horse like physically go through all this to produce all these foals? And there's obviously the logistical concerns too of like shipping mares back and forth. Like I wonder if there's like a little bit of a better, more efficient way to do this, or to kind of like factor in some new technology into the breeding game. And so, John, just I'll let you go a little bit because you're more of an expert on this than me, but these are some conversations that we've had off the air, and just give us an idea of some of the things that you've heard brought up or that have popped into your mind.
Well, Joe, I mean, we're sitting here on the breeding side, and we've had 8 straight years of a reduction in overall foals that are being produced, and it's not because of the economy, because the economy is doing quite well, the stock market is doing quite well, so it's not necessarily like an economic thing that we're talking about now. So there's got to be a reason why, and B, how we can kind of shift and make a difference. And we've changed things recently in the industry. We went to a more digital sale outlook and venue, and that not only didn't take away from brick and mortar sales, I think it enhanced the industry as a whole as a way to go ahead and monetize horses sooner and more efficiently. Boutique racing meets, I think, are the way to go now, as opposed to these year-long races. You look at how popular Saratoga is and Keeneland meets are, and people want to have the excitement of a smaller meet. Obviously, HISA and HIWU have changed, the rules and literally and figuratively, as far as making sure that we have a safer, cleaner overall product. And I think those things are revolutionary. They're entrepreneurial, and they were much needed because the way that the industry was going for the past few years, especially, we were trending in the wrong direction. And I think that there's there's the problem with the foal crop, and it's decreasing, and we have to recognize it. And Joe, we are the only sport right now that actually has live matings. We don't have the taboo term, artificial insemination. And you look at other livestock channels and industries, and it's all artificial insemination, whether it's other horse breeds or cattle, or even sometimes even dogs. If you want a purebred, you just FedEx a sample over. And I've been thinking a lot about, are we ready as an industry to kind of strike down this last taboo of why don't we do it like everyone else? Why isn't it done? And I think that artificial insemination is an opportunity to do a number of things. So just sit back for a second, and then let me kind of pontificate on some of the pros that I see, because I've been thinking about this and talking to other industry leaders, that have artificial insemination in their respective businesses. Number one, it's going to increase genetic diversity. We're going to have access to stallions literally worldwide. So if I wanted to breed a mare to Wooten Bassett or Dark Angel or Frankel, I could order the semen and have it be FedEx to wherever my mare is. That's going to increase genetic diversity to right now it's limited to, just where your mare physically is. It's going to reduce the spread of disease. So many times you breed a mare and she gets injured, she gets dirty, or there's a problem with the mating, that would reduce it. It's going to reduce stallion fatigue. I mean, Joe, you know better than I do that we're in an industry where the popular stallions are being bred 200, 250, 300 times in a window of like 4 months. That's just too much. It's too much for these horses, these stallions. And it's too much, just it's not good for them physically. And God forbid they get older or they have an injury. It's not good for them to mount and dismount as many times as they're doing, as opposed to where you can collect samples year round, literally calendar year, as opposed to just in this, one season that we're talking about. It's also going to reduce the potential injury to all parties involved. Right now, when you breed a mare, Joe, I don't know if you realize, but there's like 5 or 6 people that are in the breeding shed. So there's 5 or 6 humans that are in the breeding shed. Sometimes there's a baby foal in there. there's the mare and there's the stallion, and there's a safety issue that's involved. For the humans as well as for the equines. I think it's going to reduce a lot of that potential injury as well. And another that's not a tangible amount, tangible reason, but has value, is that there's going to be a pride of ownership. I think that if I have a chance to have a mare in that I board in New Jersey, and I'm limited right now to, if I want to breed regionally, I'm limited to, 2 stallions in New Jersey and a half a dozen stallions really in the outlying states, New York, Maryland, Pennsylvania, from a commercial standpoint. It doesn't make sense. But if I can order semen from Kentucky and have it delivered, then all of a sudden I'm popping out, better bred horses that may be Jersey breds or maybe New York breds or wherever my regional mare is. I can expend more money or dedicate more money in my budget to stud fees than I do in boarding the mare at a different farm, vanning the mare, shipping the mare, all the veterinary care that goes into, breeding mares down at a different farm. All of that is, I wouldn't say eliminated, but greatly reduced, where if I have a standard budget to breed my mare, now a higher percentage of it can go to the stud fee as opposed to the carrying costs. So now all of a sudden I'm going to have better bred horses, which should commercially beget more money for me at yearling sales, et cetera. Now, there's other reasons that to go into it. I don't want this to be a one-way conversation because I respect your opinion, and there are some downside to artificial insemination, but I really feel like that it addresses genetic diversity, reduces spread of disease. It helps people in their pocketbook from an economic standpoint. And from my understanding on the accounting side, Joe, farms that board seasonal mares, it's a loss lead for them, or it's a break even at best. So it's not like the farms in Kentucky are going to be, just outraged about, hey, we don't have all this additional money coming in. They have to hire more people. They don't have necessarily excess capacity to have mares there and have it be a money-making thing. On the flip side, if I have a better bred foal, because it's a more expensive stallion, therefore it should be a higher average as a yearling, and I let that farm that normally would board my mare, I let them sell the foal, well, then they're going to earn more in commissions, and it's going to be a lower overhead, lower hanging fruit for them as well. Again, these are just some of the things that kind of popped around in my mind. There's other opportunities as well, but what are your initial thoughts? Because I respect your opinion on this as a broad thinker.
Well, no, I mean, it's interesting that you bring it up, and it's interesting that it's the first time I've really heard it brought up, period, on a podcast and in racing. And I'm not an expert in the breeding business. Like I would never pretend to be. All I'll say is that when I do talk to people, and I have like friends who ask me sometimes who aren't into racing about the thoroughbred game and about the breeding aspect of it as well, they just assume that we do AI.
Right.
Like a lot of people are stunned when I tell them no, like there's physical matings every single time.
Right.
And they ask me like, well, why is that? And I honestly don't have a great answer for them other than tradition.
Right.
And that's why I would throw it back to you and ask like, what are the cons? Like, what are we holding on to with the physical breeding, business model that may go away and may be detrimental, or are there really not that many and we are just holding on to it because of tradition?
I think a lot of it's tradition. I think a lot of it is inertia. People hate change in anything, and especially in this industry. And if it's been done this way for years and years and years, then there must be a reason why. And sometimes it's lost. We can't really remember even why it is. But people do hate change. Kentucky farms, because that's where the majority of the top stallions are right now. Kentucky farms, have the stallions. It's a destination site. So people send their mares there. So there's the argument about the seasonal boarders. Again, I think it's a loss lead. I think it's a break even. When I look at people's books that have have farms, they don't necessarily want to have outside mares unless they're going to be able to sell those mares and or foals. So you still could sell the subsequent foals, and again, they'd be, I think, at a higher price point. There's some legal aspects as to why it can and can't be done. I think that we'd have to have somebody from the Jockey Club come in and talk to us about, from a registration standpoint, what the legalities are of it. But because right now the rule is that it has to be an actual mating, a physical mating of the broodmare and the stallion, being together physically, as opposed to artificial insemination. I'm not saying that rule can't be changed. I'm just saying that is the way the rule is written right now, and we can put that up there, later on, as far as what the actual rules are. And the other thing I think is that down the road, maybe there's going to be some technology where sperm samples can be manipulated. Right now, I know that on a centrifuge, you can spin a sample, and because the weight of a sperm that is male has 2X chromosomes, an X and Y chromosome, is a little bit heavier than the double X of a female. So you could theoretically, segregate it for colts and fillies, but I think that's still way down the line, as far as whether or not the technology to do that on an accurate basis is really here. Obviously, if we wanted to implement artificial insemination, other industries have caretakers and basically governing bodies and policing of it. So you would know if the statistics show that that it's getting out of hand one way or the other. But I think it has more to do with, we've had the status quo as is for a long time, and that's kind of the way that we do it. But if there's a way to make it more efficient, where it's going to save people money, where it's going to beget better bred horses, where it's going to have more horses. I mean, Joe, one of the byproducts also is that, there are mares right now that aren't being bred because economically it doesn't make sense to breed them. Well, all of a sudden, if half of the expenses went out the window, between vanning and veterinary and all those other ancillary things of sending them to Kentucky aren't a barrier to entry anymore. Well, now you have these dormant mares that maybe come back into the gene pool, okay? Or more importantly, produce foals. So that way the overall foal crop is higher. There's statistics showing that AI should increase the amount of pregnancies as well. So you'll have more viable pregnancies, at least going in, to foaling season. So, there's a lot of upticks. There's a lot of positives, I think, into doing this. And not in my mind, not enough negatives to at least have these conversations with some of the farms in Kentucky and with the Jockey Club and some of the other, powers that be. But we can't keep doing this the way that we're doing it. We can't keep having, 8-9 straight years of reduced overall foal crops, especially with the majority of them being from the same 30 or 40 stallions. That's part of it. Now, would this also introduce maybe some kind of a cap where you can only have so many samples that can be sent out a year? I don't know. That's for greater minds than mine to think about. But if you wanted to go in that direction, you wanted to say that a stallion could only have like 200 samples every year, then there really would be a hard deadline of being able to say to farms would have to say to people, we can't accommodate you. We've already sent out all 200 samples, but in our inventory we have these 15 other stallions that that also could fulfill your and satisfy your goal and your needs. Well, then again, you would be able to kind of play out and make deeper the gene pool that's out there, and you wouldn't have 150 of one stallion in a sale, which has been happening more and more and more. So I'm proposing that we examine this. I really think that greater minds than mine should get together and think about this and think about the legality of it and think about the other benefits of it as well. You can still sell the semen live foal or no guarantee, so that wouldn't change at all. So there's a lot of similarities that the only thing that's changing is you're making it safer, more efficient, and more cost effective by doing it this way. And I don't see a bad thing. As a matter of fact, I only see good things coming out of that process. But we can't sit idly by and do the same thing over and over again and expect to have a different result. We're not afforded that luxury anymore, Joe.